What the hell is this supposed to be? My Aunt Diane sneered, holding up the painting I'd spent weeks creating. You bring me this for my birthday? Another one of your dad's pathetic art projects? The room fell silent. I felt the heat rise to my face as 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, waiting to see how I'd respond. I said nothing. I just stood there, in the middle of her lavish living room, holding the wrapping paper in my hand like an idiot. Let me back up. My name's Nolan Brooks, and I'm a painter, or at least trying to be one. I'm 28 now, but this moment, this humiliating moment, has been a long time coming. It started 3 years ago, when my dad, Arthur Brooks, a once renowned but later forgotten artist, passed away from heart failure. He was my everything, my mentor, my best friend, the man who taught me how to find beauty in broken things. He didn't leave behind much. A small house, a dusty studio, and his entire art collection. Hundreds of original paintings and sketches he never wanted to sell. "They're my soul, kid," he used to say, patting the canvas like it was a living thing. "One day, you'll know what to do with them." After he died, I fell apart. I dropped out of my gallery internship, stopped painting, stopped everything. The only person who offered to help was Diane, my dad's younger sister. She stepped in, claimed she wanted to manage the estate, said she had lawyers and accountants ready. I was too grief-stricken to argue, so I let her handle the paperwork. That was my first mistake. She moved into Dad's house within weeks, told me I could crash on her couch in the meantime. I did, because I was broke and lost and trying to pick up the pieces. But after 2 months, she asked me to leave, said I was mopey and bad for the energy of her home. I ended up couch surfing, then finally moved into a tiny basement apartment where I could barely afford rent. She stopped answering my texts soon after. We didn't talk for over a year, until last month. Out of nowhere, Diane called me and invited me to her birthday party. She sounded different, warm, almost motherly. Said she wanted to reconnect, said she missed me. I was hesitant, but some part of me, probably the part that still missed family, wanted to believe her. So I painted something for her. It was a tribute to my father, a blend of his style and mine. Abstract, layered, full of emotion. I poured my grief into every stroke. I spent money I didn't have on a proper frame and wrapping paper, hoping that this would be the start of something new between us. Instead, she humiliated me. "Looks like a toddler did it," Diane laughed, waving the painting around like it was trash. "But I guess it's better than nothing. Not like you could afford a real gift." People chuckled. A few looked away awkwardly. I stood frozen. Couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just about the painting. This was about my dad. His memory. Everything we were. I set the frame down carefully on the table and walked out. No one followed me. I got home that night and pulled out a box of Dad's old files, hoping to find something, anything, that reminded me why I kept trying to stay connected to a woman who clearly never wanted me around. That's when I saw it. A yellowed folder, labeled in my dad's handwriting. Artwork inventory, legal documents. My breath caught. Inside was something I hadn't seen before. A notarized letter. A full inventory of every painting my father had ever cataloged. And then, my blood ran cold. A copy of a limited power of attorney he'd given Diane. Set to expire exactly 3 days after his death. Which meant she'd had no legal right to do anything with his work after that date. And yet, I remembered a post from months ago. Diane standing next to a sold painting at a gallery, smiling, caption, "Happy to see one of Dad's forgotten pieces go to a loving collector." Number, no. She hadn't just insulted me. She'd sold my father's art, behind my back, illegally, and I was going to make her pay for every last brushstroke. I couldn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at the legal document in my hands, my heart pounding like I'd uncovered a crime scene. Because I had. Diane didn't just insult my father's memory. She exploited it. She sold his legacy behind my back, using a power of attorney that expired 3 days after his death. Every painting she moved after that date, every piece of art she cashed in on, was done illegally. And worse, I remembered what she said that night. Not like you could afford a real gift. She was laughing at me with his money. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, lit by a flickering bulb, replaying everything in my head. The studio she cleaned out, the gallery post on social media, the fact that after Dad died, she swooped in and took everything, while I was too broken to stop her. She didn't even give me time to grieve, and somehow I still showed up to her birthday with a gift. God, I felt sick. I called my dad's old lawyer first thing the next morning. Mr. Halverson, a quiet, no-nonsense man in his 70s, answered on the second ring. "Nolan? I was wondering when I'd hear from you." That stopped me cold. "You knew?" I asked. There was a pause. "I suspected. Your aunt came to my office 2 weeks after your father passed. She claimed you were waiving your right to the estate and wanted me to update the will accordingly." "What?" I felt the heat rise in my face again. "I refused, of course," he said calmly. "Your father made it very clear. Everything, including the artwork, goes to you. The original will still stands. But Diane, she was persuasive. She said you were in no state to manage things, and that she'd take care of it until you were ready." "Did she sell anything?" "I have no proof of that," he said carefully. "But if you have any documentation, gallery posts, transaction records, anything that proves she moved pieces after the POA expired, we may have a case." I hung up and immediately started digging. That week, I lived on coffee and rage. I scrubbed Diane's social media, downloaded every photo she'd posted from the past 3 years. I found pictures of 6 different paintings I recognized instantly. Dad's signature was right there, clear as day. Each one was shown, on display, sold, or shipped to a new home. Then, I found something that nearly broke me. One of the paintings, The Garden at Dusk, my dad painted it the week before he died. It was the last piece he ever made. He hadn't even signed it. It used to hang in his studio, just above the easel. I remember staring at it for hours, thinking it felt like a goodbye. And Diane, she sold it. A gallery in Chicago had it listed under Anonymous Donor, recently acquired. They even had it priced at $18,000. That was the moment the grief turned into something else entirely. This wasn't just theft. This was desecration. I printed everything: screenshots, dates, captions, gallery listings. I highlighted the expiration date on the power of attorney and stapled it all together. Then I sent Diane a text. "Hey, I've been thinking about your birthday. I want to make it up to you. Sending a real gift this time." She responded with a winking emoji and a heart. I spent $20 on a fake velvet jewelry box. Inside, I placed a folded copy of the expired POA and the evidence packet. On top of it, a handwritten note: "Payment due for unauthorized sales. You'll hear from my lawyer." I had it delivered by courier. Tracked every step. 4 hours later, my phone exploded. 10 missed calls, 16 texts, then a voice message from Diane, screaming so loud I had to pull the phone away. "You ungrateful little shht! You think you can come after me, after everything I did for your father?" I listened in silence. Then, just as I was about to delete the message, another came in. A video. It was shaky, recorded in her kitchen. Diane pacing, clearly drunk, yelling at someone off screen. And then she said it. "Of course I sold those stupid paintings. What was he gonna do, rise from the grave and stop me?" I hit pause. My hands were trembling. She had just recorded a confession, and she'd accidentally sent it to me. I must have watched that video a dozen times. Each time it hit harder. Diane, my aunt, my father's own sister, pacing in her kitchen, slurring her words, saying the quiet part out loud. "Of course I sold those stupid paintings," she spat. "What was he gonna do, rise from the grave and stop me?" She laughed after that. Laughed. And then she tossed back what looked like her third glass of wine and turned to someone off camera. I couldn't make out who, but they were clearly trying to calm her down. She waved them off like they were a fly. I sat frozen, phone in hand, watching as the woman who once hugged me at my father's funeral mocked everything he stood for. Every canvas, every brushstroke, everything he left behind. That video, it was gold. She had just handed me the final piece of the puzzle, proof, raw, emotional, undeniable proof that she knew she was stealing from me and from my dad's legacy. I forwarded the clip to Mr. Halverson immediately. He called me back within the hour. "Nolan," he said, his voice steady but sharp, "that video is your smoking gun. We're filing the motion this week." And just like that, the countdown began. Within days, Diane was served. I wish I could have seen her face. She didn't call, she didn't text, but her silence was deafening. The woman who once called me 3 times a day to check in hadn't said a word since I served her legal papers. But I knew it wasn't over. That woman doesn't go down without a fight. Sure enough, a week later, I got an envelope slipped under my apartment door. No stamp, no name. Just my name, written in thick black ink. Inside was a letter and a check for $30,000. "Let's settle this quietly," the note read. "You got your little moment. Now let's move on. We're family, Nolan. Let's not ruin what's left of that." I laughed out loud. 30,000? That wouldn't even cover 2 of the pieces she sold, not to mention the damage to my dad's name, my reputation, the emotional toll. And let's be honest, there was nothing left to ruin. She made sure of that the moment she erased every trace of him from the house and called his work junk. I tore the check in half and flushed it down the toilet. The next morning, Diane finally reached out. She called me crying. "Nolan, please," she whispered. "I messed up. I did what I thought was best. I didn't mean to hurt you." "You sold his legacy," I said coldly. "For cash. You don't get to spin that." "But it's all gone," she shouted suddenly, voice cracking. "The money, it's gone. I used it to remodel the house, pay off debts, help my kids get into college. I didn't save anything." She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. "Good," I replied. "Then I hope you saved the receipts. You'll need them in court." And I hung up. The next week was chaos. Diane tried everything. She sent friends to talk me down, called my cousins, begged them to intervene. At one point, she even showed up at my art studio, pounding on the locked door until security escorted her off the property. And then, the twist came. I was at home, reviewing documents with Mr. Halverson, when he paused mid-sentence and leaned closer to the screen. "Nolan," he said carefully, "do you recognize this transaction?" He emailed me a screenshot. It was a wire transfer, dated 3 months after my dad's death. Amount, $45,000. Recipient, Glenmore Private Storage Facility. Purpose, artwork safekeeping. I stared at it, my heart pounding. "What is this?" I asked. "I think," he said slowly, "that Diane didn't sell everything." I felt the air leave my lungs. "She kept some of the collection," I whispered. He nodded. "And she paid to hide it." All this time, while pretending to be broke, pretending the art was worthless, she'd secretly stored pieces away in a private vault. She hadn't just stolen from me. She'd been planning to profit again, later, and now I had proof. The name of the storage facility kept echoing in my head like a warning bell. Glenmore Private Storage Facility. I'd never heard of it before, but when I looked it up, it made perfect sense. Top tier, climate-controlled, ultra-secure. The kind of place you'd only use if what you were storing was extremely valuable, or extremely incriminating. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, picturing my dad's paintings, his legacy, hidden away in some cold, dark vault, while Diane pretended they were all gone. Sold, forgotten. She hadn't just stolen them. She'd preserved them for herself, to profit again, later, quietly. Greed disguised as grief. I called Mr. Halverson first thing in the morning and asked him to set up a legal motion to request access to the vault based on my ownership rights. He said he'd take care of it immediately, but that these things usually take a few days. I didn't have a few days. So I went to Glenmore myself. The receptionist gave me a practiced smile. Do you have an appointment? Number. But I'm here about Unit 43B, registered under Diane Matthews. Her smile faltered. I'm afraid we can't give out any information regarding our clients. I leaned in slightly. She's been served with a lawsuit. And this vault, it holds stolen property. Want me to come back with a court order? Or would you rather help now and save yourself the bad press when this blows up in the media? The receptionist's smile vanished completely. She asked me to wait while she checked with management. 15 tense minutes passed before a tall, stern man in a suit stepped out and asked me to follow him to his office. He introduced himself as Mr. Lorne, the facility director. I can't allow you to enter the unit, he said, but I can tell you that it exists. And it's active, paid in full for the next 6 months. So she's still planning to come back for it, I said quietly. He nodded. Then, after a moment, he added, I'm also allowed to inform you, off the record, that the unit is listed as storing fine art. Nothing else. That was all I needed. The next day, Mr. Halverson filed an emergency injunction. By the following morning, we had a court date. And Diane? She was livid. She showed up to court looking like a ghost, pale, unkempt, shaking. Her lawyer tried to argue that the vault held personal effects not covered under the will. Mr. Halverson calmly presented the wire transfer, the storage contract, and, most damning, the expiration date of the power of attorney. The judge barely needed 10 minutes. Access granted. Later that afternoon, accompanied by a court-appointed representative, I walked into Glenmore and down a long, echoing corridor until we stopped at Unit 43B. The clerk turned the key, and I nearly stopped breathing. Inside were 22 paintings, all of them wrapped in museum-grade preservation materials. All of them signed Arthur Brooks. Some I recognized immediately, others were ones I'd only seen in old photos. I even saw The Garden at Dusk, the final piece Dad painted, the one Diane claimed she'd sold. She never sold it. She couldn't part with it. That's when it hit me. Diane never thought the collection was junk. She knew exactly what it was worth. She just didn't want me to have it. I had them all professionally cataloged, appraised, and returned to my possession by legal order. Diane had no say in it. She lost every last piece. Every dollar she'd spent on storage? Gone. But I wasn't finished. I remembered one more thing. A gallery in Chicago had held a piece, one she had sold. They still listed it as part of their private collection. So I contacted them and presented proof of ownership. They responded with an apology and a surprising offer. We'd like to feature both Arthur Brooks and his son Nolan in a special father-son legacy exhibition. Interested? I said yes without thinking. That same night, as I was finalizing paperwork for the show, I got an email from a name I didn't recognize. Subject: You don't know me, but I know the truth from Michael Matthews. I opened it, confused. Inside were 3 words that stopped my heart cold. I'm your cousin, and Diane lied about everything. I stared at the email from Michael Matthews for a long time before responding. I had no idea who he was, but something about the message felt urgent, real. I'm your cousin, and Diane lied about everything. We met at a small coffee shop 2 days later. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He kept glancing over his shoulder like someone was watching him. Why are you reaching out to me now? I asked. He exhaled and leaned forward. Because you deserve the truth, and I can't live with the secret anymore. He explained everything. Turns out, Diane hadn't just manipulated my father's legacy. She'd manipulated him too, when he was still alive. According to Michael, Diane convinced my dad to sign temporary control of his estate over to her during his last hospital stay. She claimed it was just to take the pressure off, but behind his back, she was already negotiating with collectors, prepping the storage vault, and laying the groundwork to erase me from the will entirely. But here's the twist. My father found out. Just days before he passed, he confided in Michael, his godson, about everything. Told him to watch Diane, protect me, and make sure I knew the truth if anything ever happened. He left a letter for you, Michael said quietly. Diane never mailed it. He pulled out a small, creased envelope from his coat pocket. My name, my dad's handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a short note, but every word pierced through me. Nolan, if you're reading this, then I didn't get to say goodbye. I'm sorry. I never stopped being proud of you. No matter what Diane says, this art, everything I've created, it belongs to you. Make sure the world sees it. And if Diane tries to stop you, don't let her. She only sees dollars. You see me? Love always, Dad. I couldn't hold back the tears. That letter, those words, were the final push I needed. I handed a copy to my lawyer. With it, plus the video confession, storage records, and appraisals, we filed a final lawsuit. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and inheritance tampering. The court didn't hold back. Diane was fined, ordered to repay all funds from illegal sales, and barred from representing any estate again. Her name was publicly disgraced in the local art community. Galleries blacklisted her. Private collectors pulled their endorsements. She lost the home she'd remodeled with stolen money. Her perfect image shattered. But it wasn't the money that hit her hardest. It was the silence. People stopped returning her calls. Her so-called friends distanced themselves. Her children, furious that she'd jeopardized their future and lied for years, moved out and cut ties. Even her husband filed for separation. And me? I stood in the center of our gallery's opening night. It was packed, cameras flashing, reporters murmuring about the uncovered legacy of Arthur Brooks and his son Nolan. And there, hanging in the center of the room, was the garden at dusk, restored, illuminated, honored. I felt peace, not just because I got justice, but because I kept my father's voice alive, even when others tried to silence it. As the night wound down, I stepped outside to catch my breath, and there she was. Diane, standing across the street, in the shadows, watching the crowd gather. Her face pale, hollow, eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. Regret? Rage? Emptiness. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. She turned and walked away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the forgotten kid in the corner. I felt seen. I felt free. Because the truth has weight. And sometimes, it takes the weight of the truth to finally bury a lie. Comment the number 1 if you think Diane got what she deserved. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more true stories like this.